Hi everyone, I'm Sara McKinley, the Local History and Genealogy Supervisor of Muncie Public Library. As you may know, it's March, and so we're celebrating Women's History Month. In celebration of all of the contributions that women have made throughout history, I'll be sharing a list of 5 notable women from right here in Muncie and Delaware County. Number 1, Ida Husted Harper. Ida Husted Harper was born in 1851 to parents John Arthur Husted and Cassandra Stoddard Husted, and moved to Muncie with her family when she was 10 years old. She was a member of the first graduating class of Muncie High School in 1868 and went on to become a writer and one of the most important figures in the women's suffrage movement. When she launched her career in journalism in 1872, she was first published under the pen name John Smith, as it was nearly impossible for a woman's work to be published in those days. In 1887, she became secretary of the Indiana Women's Suffrage Association and organized conventions around the state. In 1896, she continued her work for women's suffrage in California at the request of Susan B. Anthony. She became the movement's public relations secretary, communicating with 250 newspapers that supported the 19th Amendment. Susan B. Anthony was so impressed with Ida's work that she hired her to be her official biographer, and in 1898, Ida Harper published The Life and Work of Susan B. Anthony. Harper and Anthony later co-wrote The History of Women's Suffrage, and in 1913 she addressed President Wilson directly as part of a women's suffrage committee to urge him to include the 19th Amendment in his message to a special session of Congress. Until her death in 1931, she was a delegate to the International Suffrage Alliance. Number 2, Nettie Pearson Rife. Nettie Edith Pearson Rife was born in 1882 to parents Hezekiah Taylor Pearson and Josephine Jones Pearson and grew up in Muncie. She graduated from Muncie High School with the class of 1902. Nettie was described as a refined and bright young student and was prominent in church circles. In 1917, Nettie's mother Josephine was one of the founding members of Muncie's local Booker T. Washington Franchise League, which was the African American Woman Suffrage League that fought for passage of the 19th Amendment. Nettie herself was actively involved in the suffrage movement. In 1926, she continued her work locally for the betterment of women in the community by co-founding Muncie's Phyllis Wheatley branch of the YWCA. Nettie later enrolled in Wellesley College in Massachusetts to study social welfare and attended classes at Ball State College. As a secretary of the YWCA, she was often a guest speaker at conferences and events, and she utilized her training at YWCA institutions to focus on bettering the lives of girls in the community. She went on to become executive director of the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA, and after 20 years of work, membership grew to nearly 400 girls. When Nettie died in 1951, the newspaper reported that Muncie had lost one of its outstanding women. The YWCA gave a memorial program for Nettie and planted a tree in her honor. Number 3, Reverend Lucille Sanders. Reverend Lucille Bowyer McCartney Sanders was born in Muncie in 1908 to parents Marshall Bowyer and Mittie Venetter Bowyer, later taking the last name of her stepfather McCartney. She graduated from Muncie High School, and after graduating from God's Bible School in Cincinnati and getting married in Colorado, she returned to Muncie with her husband, Lawrence Sanders. Lucille's husband began working with the men at the Muncie Mission, and she realized at that time that Muncie didn't provide the same help for women. In 1946, she and her husband opened the Wayside Mission for Women on South Walnut Street. Lucille took a holistic approach to caring for the women and children at the mission. She not only provided food and a place to sleep, but also educated the residents. Instead of focusing on her own material needs, she focused on acquiring supplies to keep the mission running and to feed and clothe the women and children. Between 1946 and 1975, the Wayward Mission had assisted more than 156,000 families, served 297,900 meals, and provided 95,722 beds for women and girls. In 1979, Lucille opened the Mission Church on Burns Street, a church donated anonymously to the Wayside Mission with the note that Lucille would pastor the church. In the back of the church, she set up a clothing distribution center that distributed 11,000 free articles of clothing in just its first 3 months of operation. Lucille received multiple honors during her life, including 3 times awarded Outstanding and Distinguished Personalities of the West and Midwest, the Rosicrucian Humanitarian Award, and the Beta Sigma Phi Humanitarian Award. She was also included in the London, England Dictionary of International Biographies, which included a Certificate of Merit and for Distinguished Service, which she received for providing a home for the friendless and forlorn. Number 4. Jean Ross Konwarski. Jean Ross Konwarski was born in 1921 to parents Thomas Ross and Daisy Heath Ross. She graduated from Cowan High School in 1939 and attended Ball State University, where she studied business and physical education. While earning her college education, World War II was underway in Europe. When 2 of her brothers enlisted in the military, she felt that her brothers would come home sooner if she helped with the war effort, and by that she meant joining the military herself. In 1943, she enlisted as a member of the Women's Army Corps, and after basic training, she went to Europe and served in France and Germany. She earned 2 battle stars and the rank of sergeant while serving on the Eastern Front. At the end of the war, she worked close enough to General Dwight D. Eisenhower that she sometimes took down dictation for him. She was also one of 4 Women's Army Corps members that typed the Nazi surrender papers that ended the conflict in Europe, and she witnessed the surrender. Number 5. B. Moten Foster. Beatrice Moten Foster was born in Alabama in 1937 to parents Charlie and Hattie Moten. She was a community activist and trailblazer on many fronts, beginning in her youth in the American South. One day, while taking the bus from Birmingham to visit her father in Talladega, she decided to test the system of racial segregation by riding at the front of the bus. She bravely stood her ground when the white driver and passengers protested, and when the bus arrived at its destination, the entire police department was waiting for her. The situation was tense and frightening, but she was allowed to leave without incident. The experience did not deter her from moving forward and working to make a difference in every community she lived. After graduating from high school, she worked as a radio co-host in Miami and even briefly dated Cassius Clay, later known as Muhammad Ali. While working for WNJR in New York, she launched a program titled African Profiles, which led to her spending several years as a correspondent at the United Nations, where she interviewed presidents and diplomats from Africa. B moved to Indianapolis in 1965 and became the city's first Black radio announcer and the first Black woman to host a television show. She also became a founding member of the Indiana Black Expo, and in 1976 published the book 200 Years of Black Cookery. B came to Muncie when she married Ball State professor Dr. Robert O. Foster in 1982, and she continued her work in community activism. She established the Martin Luther King Dream Team, the Muncie Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Muncie Black Expo, and in 1991, she launched the newspaper The Muncie Times, which highlighted news and history from the local Black communities. So there you have it, 5 of the notable women out of hundreds from our community's history who are recognized for their contributions to society and their fight to make a difference. To find out more about notable women from Muncie and Delaware County history, visit or contact our Carnegie Library branch, read our Throwback Thursday posts on MPL's Facebook page, and check out the links in this video's description for more resources from our community partners.